Welcome to Badger Talks Quick Picks, which brings exciting happenings, resources, and talent from your UW flagship campus to the people of Wisconsin and beyond, demonstrating the power of the Wisconsin idea, one connection at a time.
Hi everyone, my name is PJ Liesch. I'm an entomologist at UW-Madison and director of the UW Insect Diagnostic Lab. And being October, I have a very fitting talk for you tonight to talk about creatures of the night, bed bugs. Now, we might be wondering, why are bed bugs so scary? We've all heard of them in nursery rhymes before, but they very much are creatures of the night. They like to spend most of their time in dark, tucked away areas. They are essentially vampires. They are obligate blood feeders, meaning that they have to go to you or I or another human to get a meal. They also can vanish just like ghosts because they dart out, they feed for 5 to 10 or so minutes, and then they go back to lurk in these dark, tucked away spots. They also have spooky origins. When we think of horror films, we might think of caves and bats, and that's specifically where we believe that bed bugs originated, and I'll talk more about that in just a moment. They also are the thing of nightmares, or at least something that can cause anxiety. The mere thought that you might have bed bugs is probably going to ruin your night's sleep, and so they certainly can have mental health impacts as well as health impacts from their bites. And also in terms of dealing with bed bugs, they're a very challenging pest to deal with, and they need to be dealt with by a pest management professional. There are some do-it-yourself methods, but they can often make the situation worse. Now, many folks have never seen a bed bug, and I hope that's the case for you, that you never bump into these, but there's often this misconception that bed bugs are too small to see with the naked eye, which really is not correct. The adult bed bugs shown on the right-hand portion of this slide are actually up to about 1/4 of an inch long. They have a reddish-brown coloration, and in general, they're about the same size, shape, and color as a small apple seed. Now, these insects belong to a group called the order Hemiptera. These are the true bugs, or sucking insects, and the family Cymicidae. They have tubular mouthparts that somewhat resemble a mosquito, and they use those to bite and take a blood meal. And even the tiny eggs shown in the bottom left-hand corner are about 1 millimeter or 2 long. They also can be seen with the naked eye. Now, when I think of how humans have interacted with bed bugs over time, it would look something like this. So thousands of years ago, bed bugs originated in caves, we believe, in the Mediterranean region. And at that point in time, they actually fed on the blood of bats. Now, as humans started living in those caves, eventually the bed bugs switched from feeding on the blood of bats to humans. And that really set the stage for this modern bed bug story. Now, over time, as humans moved around the globe with trade and exploration through sailing ships and things like that, bed bugs became common in Europe by about the 16 and 1700s. Interestingly, they were very much a seasonal problem at that point in time, being cold-blooded creatures. During the fall, winter, and early spring months, they really were fairly dormant. It was too cold for them to grow and develop, and they were more of a summer or warm season issue. But something interesting happened in the course of human history, and it's something that we appreciate for our own comfort, but central heating. When central heating became a big thing and we started keeping our homes at a nice, consistent temperature, that really allowed bed bugs to go about their business all year round. Now, another interesting thing happened right around the time of World War II, when we as humans started using DDT, which was a very, very potent insecticide. And because DDT was so widely used, especially for things like bed bugs, their populations plummeted. And so as a side note, if you were an entomologist in the 60s or 70s or 80s, and you actually saw a sample of bed bugs, that was interesting because they were relatively rare at that point in time. However, due to the overuse of insecticides like DDT, they developed resistance. And it turns out some of our modern insecticides work in almost the same way as DDT. And what happened is, due to resistance and then also expansion of business travel in the 80s and 90s, we saw this resurgence and reappearance of bed bugs on the global scene in about the 1990s. And these showed up initially in locations like larger business cities, Tokyo, New York, Los Angeles, and so on. Those were the spearheads, so to speak, and then over time, bed bugs moved to other locations from there. So this has really been something that in the course of human history, these bed bugs have reemerged in about the last 25 to 30 years after being almost gone for decades. Now, in terms of their biology and life cycle, let's start out with a little bit of a love story, a six-legged love story. So with the adult bed bugs, the male is going to seek out a female that has recently had a blood meal. That means she has enough nutrition in her body to be able to lay eggs. And after mating, the female is going to go about laying eggs, and every day she may lay a handful of eggs, 2 to 5 eggs. And in her lifetime, she can easily lay as many as 500 eggs. Now, under ideal conditions, nice warm temperatures, adequate humidity, they can go through their entire life cycle in just over a month, about 5 weeks or so. And with the nice constant conditions from indoor AC and central heating, they can go through multiple generations per year and increase their numbers fairly rapidly. A common question I get from the public, though, is could I go on vacation for a week or a month and starve them out? And that isn't really going to work. Remember, these insects evolved living in caves feeding on bats. Bats could leave and not come back for days or weeks or months at a time, so these insects are very well adapted for going without food for long periods of time. That can also complicate things in terms of their management. Now, in terms of bed bug behavior, there's a number of ways that they can get moved around. But a key way is passive movement. And what I mean by that is the bed bugs themselves are not the ones moving. It's us as humans. And as I mentioned a moment ago with global travel, movement of suitcases and things like that, that's a very easy way that they can be moved around a planet. And when we have small infestations, initially they tend to be close to a bed or on nearby furniture or items on a nightstand. Clocks, electronics, maybe medical equipment such as a CPAP machine. They also can get behind baseboards and electrical outlet plate covers. These things are very good at getting into tucked away dark spots. As those populations build and build, then we get more active movement. Essentially, the female bed bugs are a little bit tired of the males chasing them around for mating purposes, and they start to scatter. And so they end up going from a bedroom to a bathroom, kitchen, and beyond. And that can really complicate things from a management standpoint. In terms of the impacts of bed bugs, they of course can bite, that's going to itch. Everyone reacts differently though. Usually the reaction of the bite is going to show up within 12 to 24 hours. Sometimes it can take upwards of a week, and some individuals won't react at all. Some good news though is they don't transmit any diseases, but they can have some serious impacts on mental health in terms of causing anxiety and insomnia. Again, the mere idea that you might have bed bugs is going to cause a lot of anxiety and probably ruin your night's sleep. Also, there can be social impacts in terms of self-isolation if you think or know you have bed bugs, and also there can be social stigmas associated with this. Now, when it comes to management of bed bugs, they can be eliminated using a number of approaches, but this is a situation where you really need to work with a pest management professional, a professional exterminator. There are some do-it-yourself methods, but they can often make the situation work. Now also, there's a lot of factors that go into managing bed bugs. How big is the population? What sort of building are we in? Is this one bedroom of a single family house? Or is it an apartment building where the bed bugs are in a number of units? That can really complicate things. Also, each management approach has strengths, weaknesses, and limitations. For example, we have heat treatments, we can see in that bottom right-hand picture, where a pest control company will bring in large space heaters, get the temperature up to about 140 degrees to kill them, but there's no residual protection from that. There are also chemical insecticide treatments, and early detection is always a good thing for these. Now, just to wrap up with some final thoughts, one key thing about bed bugs is really make sure you correctly identify your pest. And that's where I help folks around Wisconsin. The reason I say this is we have bed bugs. We also have 3 very closely related species, such as the bat bug, shown on the far right-hand picture of this slide. There's also a species associated with chimney swifts and swallows. If you think you have bed bugs, and you really have one of those other species, you could spend a lot of money treating for a pest that isn't there. Also, as I mentioned, it's important to work with a pest management professional to deal with these correctly. Avoid those do-it-yourself treatments that can make things worse, and also avoidance and prevention are key. Personally, one key thing I do is if I'm traveling and staying in a hotel room, when I check in and go to my room, I spend about 5 to 10 minutes inspecting the bed, nightstand, and nearby areas just for any clues that bed bugs might be present. And with that, I'd like to thank you for joining me to learn a little bit about bed bugs, these creepy creatures of the night. And if you'd ever like to get in touch with me in the future, please feel free to check out my website for the UW Insect Diagnostic Lab.